Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 280 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. We're so glad you're tuning in for another week of Blue Jays talk with us, whether it's on the old YouTube stream or Facebook or Twitter, however you're catching our program. We deeply, deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much. And don't forget, you can always throw in your 2 cents or 3 cents or 4 cents, however much you'd like to offer. Go ahead, throw a comment or a question in there, and we'll put it up on the screen, and we will interact as best we can with your input. And of course, don't forget, if you miss this live streaming, it's available, after the fact on YouTube or Facebook, but you can also catch the audio version anywhere you find quality podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify. You'll find Jays from the Couch. So look us up there. So, episode 280. Let's begin. Come on in, have a seat on the couch, and let's talk some Blue Jays baseball. I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC. We've got a great show for you. Typically, over the last few weeks, we've been doing a lot of fake news. We've been doing some fun trivia contests, and it was a lot of fun, mostly because the World Series was still going on and the offseason hadn't started yet. But here we are now, episode 280, and we've got some news. We've got some signings, so we'll talk about Kevin Gausman. We'll talk about Yimi Garcia. We'll talk about Marcus Simeon. We'll talk about Robbie Ray. And we'll follow that up with some actual fake news, which is actually more fun than the real news, depending on your perspective, of course. And to help me do all of this, my faithful co-hosts, as always, host of the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the feckless wonder himself, Steve Feck. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sean. Nothing to see here.
Oh, no, there's lots to see, and I can't wait. And lots to talk about, too. And so we'll bring in host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Karen Suter. Good evening.
Good evening, Sean. Good evening, Steve.
All right, so here we are now, episode 280, and it's such a whirlwind time in Major League Baseball right now. And I don't know how much of the impending expiration of the collective bargaining agreement between the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League Baseball expiring on December 1st. I don't know how much that actually is playing into things. I've heard rumors on Twitter, saw rumors on Twitter that this is all kind of a manipulation to see how a potential deadline could work in the off seasons for signing free agents and so on and so on. And that's the beauty of talking about baseball and the Blue Jays in the year 2021, soon to be 2022, that there's just conspiracy theories abound. So it's a perfect time. Everybody's got a thought, an interpretation, and that's why everybody's tuning in to the Jays from the Couch podcast. So let's get right into it. First, we'll try and do this in some kind of sequential order. Chronological tends to work for a lot of people. So, but my brain doesn't work that way. So we'll see if I actually get it right. So, Yimi Garcia added to the bullpen. Has some back-end experience, not necessarily an elite closer, but somebody with experience. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. When you saw that the Toronto Blue Jays added Yimi Garcia to the already effective bullpen that they ended the season with Adam Simber, Trevor Richards, Tim Meza, and that guy from Canada, Jordan Romano. Steve, what were your thoughts when you saw that deal go through?
Well, my first thought was, why aren't they signing a left-handed reliever? But then I thought about it some more. I mean, again, it's not that easy to find a guy that has closing experience. I mean, he was kind of erratic as a closer, though he pitched, for some bad Marlin teams when he was closing for them. He was in the postseason with the Astros. I think his ERA does not really reflect how well he pitched. So I think it makes the sense of building that uber bullpen that I think that's what Atkins really would like to have ideally, and Montoya and Walker have multiple options that could fill in any role. So if you want to bring in somebody, let's say you wanted to bring in Jordan Romano in the 7th for some reason because of a matchup, you could have Garcia close out a game. So after my initial shock, really, at the term and at the player involved, I was pretty happy.
Right. Yeah. It's not. And Karen, I think for me, my reaction was it's not Rafael Dolis, or Tyler Chatwood. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily one of those kind of fingers crossed type of moves, right? So, Karen, what are your thoughts on adding Garcia to the bullpen?
Yeah, well, let's sure as heck hope that it isn't, or Brad Hand, or anybody who was supposed to help that really didn't. I mean, I heard about the signing. I had a quick look at his stats, and I wasn't all that impressed. But then I did a bit of a deeper dive. It seemed like everyone around, like everybody that I follow on Twitter, really liked it. I'm like, okay, so I did a bit of a deeper dive, and I think he's got potential. Like if we've got, prior to this, if we had guys that we can trust for the most part, being Romano, Meza, Adam Simber, Trevor Richard, I think he has potential to be a part of that group. As you said, not necessarily the guy, but as long as he is a guy, one that we can trust more often than not, then that's good. It's a piece. It's a piece to the puzzle. Hopefully.
No, exactly. And I think that was, it was Toronto's first move, really, other than extending Jose Barrios, which technically didn't do anything to help their 2022 season. So it was, what I like about it is this idea, and it's almost cliche at this point, but kind of raising the floor of that bullpen, right? Because from year to year, relievers can be such a hit or miss group of performers, and I think it has to do with the small sample size and so on and so on. But having the ability to rely on, looking down at that bullpen and having 7 guys who can get outs, right? I mean, I would argue that's what Tampa Bay has done so effectively, is not just having effective pitching, but having a strong bullpen. They don't necessarily need an elite starting rotation because they have that strong bullpen. So it for me anyway, it was good to see Toronto kind of raising the floor of that talent pool from which to draw in the second half of games, because you're finding more and more, right? Teams are limiting the amount of innings that a starter gets to stay out in the game. I was doing up a thing, and I'll talk about it in a bit here, but doing up a thing looking at the inning totals for starting pitchers in the AL East, and nobody is at or above 200 innings projected for 2022, right? And Garrett Cole, I think him and Barrios are the 2 that come the closest. And then everybody else is like 150 innings or so, 140, something like that, which to me speaks to the importance of a bullpen, right? So anyway, it's good to see them. I don't want to spend too much time on a bullpen because there's so much more to talk about, but it's a good move. It was a good start to the 2022 advancement of this club. There will be more, though. I feel like January, February in a normal year, you would see Ross Atkins signing a bunch of relievers and hoping, some of them catch on. But the good news is now they don't have to rely on that method. So yeah, let's leave Garcia for now, because really there are more important things to talk about, and no disrespect to Mr. Garcia, of course. But Toronto Blue Jays got their starting pitcher in Kevin Gausman. What to me was I head scratcher. I have to be honest here, and I'm going to admit it publicly, because why not? When I heard that Kevin Gausman would be potential target for the Toronto Blue Jays, I got a little about it. You know, my preference was re-sign Robbie Ray, and Karen, I know that's where you were as well. And I'll let you share your own opinion. I'm not going to steal your thunder or anything, but Kevin Gausman, I was like, and maybe it was because he's, and Karen, maybe you suggested this to me, that maybe it's just left over from his Baltimore Orioles days, and that very well may be. However, regardless, Toronto got him 5 years, 110, I believe. Not a bad contract if you're looking for a number 2 type starter. It's certainly not Max Scherzer making $43 million a year with the New York Mets, who are so desperate to sign somebody. They'll just Steve, I think you're up next. Check your phone, because I think Cohen is calling you there.
Well, I mean, I had that reputation, having grown up in Jersey, of being that knuckleball, breaking ball kind of guy. So,
I'll tell you, I thought you were going to say knucklehead.
From one Steve to another.
That's right.
Anyway, so they have Kevin Gausman. The Toronto Blue Jays rotation looks pretty good. But let's go for some reactions here. Karen, I'll start with you on Kevin Gausman, because we will talk about Robbie Ray. But I know, like, you kind of can't talk about one without the other. But what were your your thoughts on signing Kevin Gausman?
Right. I mean, my initial thought in hearing that he would be a free agent is I thought he was going to re-sign with the San Francisco Giants. So I'm happy that the Jays were able to pull this off. And I look at him, I mean, I vaguely remember him when he was with the Baltimore Orioles and not really being all that good. And I think a few years ago he was like DFA'd for nothing or something, and one team claimed him. But I look at the kind of year that he had, just the stats, the actual stats, and the StatCast page, and then I compared him to Robbie Ray, who we'll get to. But I mean, other than the fact that one is right-handed and one is left-handed, in terms of their results, they really struck me as very similar. I mean, they're even the same age. They're both 30 years old. They both had inconsistent careers, and they both had very, very good seasons in 2021. And the Blue Jays have liked Kevin Gausman for a long time, and I'm hopeful that his recent success is something that is sustainable, like at least for the first 2 to 3 years of this contract, and that he can help the Blue Jays win some meaningful games. And they were even talking on one of the sports highlight shows, they're saying, if you're thinking back to his days as a Baltimore Oriole, don't, because he has a different arsenal now. That apparently one of his pitches is elite. And so, I mean, I'm happy. I'm hopeful that this gives them a very solid rotation, along with Ryu, Barrios, Manoah, and whoever else ends up in that 5th spot. So
TBD. But yeah, I think and that's the thing, Karen. I think having Gausman play over in San Francisco is just not somebody who's been on my radar, really, other than, hey, that guy's pretty good, but I didn't know much about him, so I also had to go do some digging, and I love the splitter. That's something that I was drooling over quite a bit. But Steve, here we go with the Blue Jays bringing in somebody who has similar stuff to Robbie Ray, in that he's an effort pitcher, albeit from the other side of the mound. Steve, I guess my question to you is, would you have preferred Robbie Ray, or is Kevin Gausman the big ticket here?
Well, I, like you, was not really hot to trot for Kevin Gausman coming here. His splitter is virtually unhittable if he's setting up his pitches, correctly. But if you're watching on the YouTube channel, my little hashtag is AllIn2022. They did what they had to do. They had to bring in an established pitcher. So I don't care if it was Kevin Gausman. I don't care if it was the fossil remains of Dave Steve, whatever it was, somebody that could go out there and pitch. That's the thing that I'm valuing here. I've been ranting and raving about they have to make the move. They have to make the move. They have to make the move. They've got to be aggressive. They were aggressive. Okay, they added that 5th year. I don't know that he was going to get 5 years from anywhere else. Just like with Springer and with Ryu, they were aggressive. They did what they needed to do. So I can live with Kevin Gausman. I mean, I don't think you can compare Robbie Ray's ceiling with Kevin Gausman's ceiling. But we have Kevin Gausman. And if we didn't have Kevin Gausman and Ray signed with the Mariners, maybe we're having a different conversation.
Yeah. I think the having the Kevin Gausman and losing Robbie Ray is a much easier pill to swallow, for sure. And so here we are now. The Toronto Blue Jays have essentially, they've got Barrios and they've got Gausman, who basically we're talking about 2 pitchers who are number 2s who could easily be number 1s on any given day. And then you've got Ryu, whatever the flip he's going to be, and really he's a number 3, right? And then Alek Manoah, who, oh man, he's going to be the one to watch in 2022. Hopefully the whole sophomore jinx thing is just a bunch of BS, and then they've got this fifth starter spot, right? And Fangraphs currently lists it as Ross Stripling. And I only know that because I did up a little piece for tomorrow, which would be Tuesday, just comparing the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation with the rest of the American League East. And it is good. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's good. It's good. I'm not going to give anything away, but it looks pretty good. A lot of things have to go right for a couple of other clubs, whereas Toronto really just has to kind of be, and their rotation it's just that much better. So there's that. That's good news. But that 5th spot isn't necessarily going to Ross Stripling, even, because I use Fangraphs depth charts and they have Ross Stripling there, but it could easily go to Nate Pearson. Could be a competition in spring training. I know, Steve, you just shook your head, and quickly I'll let you explain your head shake in a second. But really, it could do. So there could be a battle for that 5th spot, or there could be another signing here in the next few hours, tomorrow, or whenever this contract BS gets sorted out. But Steve, I think you and I have the same opinion as far as Nate Pearson goes. So I'll let you quickly explain your head shake there.
Well, the main reason I did the head shake is that Atkins came out in his end of the season thing and said his vision for Pearson this year is to be not quite an opener, but not quite a regular innings kind of starter guy. He's going to be a length reliever. I think as spring training evolves and as the season evolves, Nate Pearson is going to be a back of the bullpen dominant force. But so I think Atkins is already committed to having Pearson. I don't want to say baby him in the bullpen, but that's something that they do with young pitchers that have had injury issues. You keep them in the bullpen so you can kind of keep a rein on them for a little bit. So I think that's where Pearson's going to go. And while I don't see another pitcher being signed before the lockout occurs, I do believe that they will bring in at least one more experienced starter of some level, I think, to be that 5th starter.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm just drooling at the idea of having Nate Pearson come out of the bullpen for 1 or 2 innings, just throwing absolute gas, striking out the Yankees and Red Sox willy-nilly. Can't wait. Anyway, so with now Gausman in place, that means Robbie Ray was allowed to pursue other options. And I say it like that because the Blue Jays clearly made an offer. And it reminds me, and I don't know, I'm developing even more respect for this front office. They did what they did with Robbie Ray was the same thing that they did with Edwin. They gave him what they thought was a fair offer, a good offer, and they said, this is it. You can go try somewhere else, but this is what we're willing to pay. And we're willing to pay, but we're not going to wait around for it. And so Robbie Ray tried to get his offers, and he even came back to Toronto asking, hey, why don't you increase that a little bit? And they were like, no, this is our offer. And then they said, okay, writing's on the wall. We're going to go get Kevin Gausman because we're going to lose Robbie Ray. And like Steve said earlier, missing out on both of them does absolutely no good. So here we go. Robbie Ray going to Seattle, of all places. Seattle, man. He's going to regret it. I'm just saying that. I'm throwing that out there now. He's going to regret it, Steve.
Yes.
He's going to regret playing in Seattle. That's why he wanted an opt-out, which Toronto would not give him after 3 years. So he's got his opt-out. He's going to hate it, but he signs in Seattle. And Steve, you have an opinion of Seattle that I just don't share, in that they finished a game back of Toronto last season. And I know you think that that's a sign that they're an up-and-coming team. I would argue that they played above their head where Toronto played below. So that's kind of where I see the difference. But losing... I guess, first of all, Karen, let me ask you this question. Does it really feel like we lost Robbie Ray?
It does to me. So I mean, I'm wanting them to go for it. I think we all want them to go for it for 2022. And I mean, when it comes to my Toronto Blue Jays, I can be a little bit greedy because we've got a rotation of 4 plus who knows who. And had they, I think that they could have also re-signed Robbie Ray to that same contract as well as Kevin Gausman. And they'd still have some money left to address other needs. And man, what a rotation that would have been to go with the position players that they had. But it's just, it's kind of funny and kind of sad the way it worked out. I mean, a little over a year ago, we're sitting here and, so what do you think of the Robbie Ray signing? Well, it's okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. He was kind of so-so last year, and let's see how it goes. He's got potential. And now, so many people just wanted him back, and now he's gone. But I'm with you. I don't think he's going to be particularly happy out in Seattle. I don't see them doing a lot as far as making playoffs, being competitive, and we'll see how it goes. But it's too bad.
Right, and it's, there's another layer to that with the Texas Rangers spending $1 bajillion over the last couple of days themselves, right? So the AL West is going to start getting competitive. I assume the Rangers have a plan on getting some pitchers, but we'll see. So, Steve, over to you. I know you feel Seattle is a good place for Robbie Ray to be in, but I'll throw it over to you. Do you feel like you lost Robbie Ray?
Yes, because I was still holding out. In fact, there was something on Twitter, a poll on Twitter saying, who do you think the opening day starter for Toronto is going to be? And I put Robbie Ray. And that was like at 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. I get why Ray wanted an opt-out. I get why the front office would be hesitant to do that, where they're saying, look, we've got all these pieces in place. You're either in or you're out. And Robbie hemmed and hawed a little bit, and Ross for once didn't hem and haw, and he went and he swooped in and got Gausman. So it's a hard pill to swallow, and I do think that the Mariners are going to surprise both you and Karen. I think the Mariners are going to be a playoff team, whether there's expanded playoffs or not, next year. They have a young pitching. Wow. Yeah. So again, I don't want to bring up I told you so's, but I said the same thing about the Red Sox. Now, admittedly, I didn't say the Red Sox were going to make the playoffs, but I did say the Red Sox were going to finish, Actually, I had him finishing ahead of the Rays. I actually had the Yankees, Jays, Red Sox, and Rays, so I was wrong there. But I mean, it's just a matter of, they have as much young talent, major league ready young talent, as the Jays have. Jays are deeper, I think, at the lower levels right now, but they've got it. I mean, the Mariners have what it takes. I think Houston is vulnerable. Oakland, Lord knows what Oakland's going to be like. They just have no choice now that the stadium's not going to go through in Oakland. They have to, they've got to clear payroll to save up the money so they can help contribute to the building of the stadium in Las Vegas. So and Texas, right? They don't have the pitching. But they do have a new ballpark they need to keep filled so they can sign pitching down the road. They have Jack Leiter coming. They have 2 other young guys they drafted this year. They're college pitchers that'll probably be up. So I wouldn't write off Texas long term. So I think Robbie's going to be happy in Seattle. Good ballpark to pitch in. And I think it's a laid-back enough city that I think that fits Robbie's off-field preferences, not playing in New York, not playing in LA. I think, Toronto was great in a lot of ways for him because, again, there was limited attendance. They weren't even playing in Toronto for a good part of the year. So I think he's gonna really flourish in Seattle, at least for the first 3 years before he opts out.
Oh yeah, he'll opt out. There's no question in my mind.
He's going to keep getting better, so it would be foolish for him not to opt out. But it doesn't matter. You take him for the 3 years you got him.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the year and a half we had him. So
for sure. Speaking of somebody who's left, Marcus Simeon now playing in Texas for 7 years and $1 billion, million, trillion dollars, whatever. Karen, that one didn't. The only thing about it, I said it to my son, and I even tweeted this because it was just so funny. Because I said to my son, "Oh my goodness, Marcus Simeon signed for, in Texas for 7 years, and I think it was 127, right?
175.
175. Where did I get one? Vernon Wells. That's what I was thinking. Yeah." Those were the days. Anyway, 175, 7 years, 175. And my son, his reaction was, well, that was not a good decision. And I swear to you, to both of you right now, I still don't know who made the bad decision in my son's mind. Is it the Rangers for signing Marcus Simeon for 7 years? Or is it Marcus Simeon for going to play for Texas? Who knows? But Karen, thoughts on losing Marcus Simeon?
Right. I mean, it's, excuse me, it is a loss for the Jays. I mean, that 1 year deal has there been a 1 year deal in their history that has been as good as that? Like it couldn't have gone any better for I'm not even sure what they hope to get out of it. I have my theories, which we've discussed, but he did everything. I mean, he hits more than they could have expected. He won a Gold Glove. He was there with leadership. He helped out some of the younger guys, and it definitely fills a void that somebody, whether it's internally or externally, will have to fill. Now, having said that, I could very, very easily see 2021 being a career year for Marcus Simeon. When it's all said and done, we look back 10, 20 years from now, whatever it is, and look at his stats, and 2021 could very well jump out. And you look at the rest of his career, it's like, okay, pretty good player, had some other good years. I think he's still going to be good for the next few years. I don't think he's going to be top 3 MVP good. And I mean, I don't know when the decline will start and how fast it'll start, but I think that there are options for the Blue Jays to replace Marcus Simeon, to get quality there. I mean, my first thought right now, Kevin Biggio, go back over to second base. And this is this is going to be a bit of a hot take, and some people might think I'm a little bit crazy, but it wouldn't completely shock me at the end of 2022, assuming everybody's healthy, if Kevin Biggio ends up with more WAR for the season than Marcus Simeon does. I think Kevin Biggio has that kind of potential. I mean, when you look at, because his first 2 years between getting called up in late May and 2020 only being 60 games, basically his first 2 years were about 160 games. So that's the equivalent of one season. And I believe if you add up the WAR for the 2 seasons, it was close to 4. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility to say that he could be like a low 4 WAR and that Simeon could regress to a low 4 WAR. And so I really think last year was an anomaly for Kevin Biggio. But yeah, I mean, good for Marcus Simeon as far as if, I'll say if your son meant that Simeon didn't make a good decision, you have to consider what it was that he wanted to get out of free agency, because hiring Scott Boras as his agent tells me that his number one priority was money. And if that's what it was, he got it. So great for him. But if he cares at all about being part of a winning situation, I don't think he's going to find that in Texas, at least not for the first couple of years. And who knows after that, but
yeah, I heard it said that he's a big union guy, Simeon is, and he was just going for the max contract, doing his part as a good soldier for his union. Who knows? At the end of the day, Marcus Simeon knows what Marcus Simeon was after, right? We can just guess and all of that, but at the end of the day, he got paid. But Steve, I'm going to throw it to you quickly before we hit into our fake news here. Marcus Simeon was probably the easiest to replace of everybody who was on the roster at the end of the year, who won't be next year. Marcus Simeon was the easiest to replace in the sense that Karen just said. Kevin Biggio can go to second, right? A full season of George Springer, Kevin Biggio, and Santiago Espinal will give you whatever you've lost from Marcus Simeon leaving. So, Steve, I guess my question to you is, are you kind of with me in the sense that, like, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, well, see you later. Thanks for everything you've done, and good luck down there.
The first words out of my mouth when I saw it was, thank God. He had a great year. Yes, he did. He had a career year. That is great. That money that he got for that great year might have made signing people this year a little bit easier, because they would have already had a lot of the rotation set had they spent money on pitchers or bullpens last year. But 2021 is over. It's now 2022. All in 2022. Kevin Biggio, Karen, I can't agree with you more. He will outperform Marcus Simeon. By the time Biggio's up for free agency, he will have outperformed Marcus Simeon over the course of that 3-year period. I honestly believe that. He's not going to hit 40 home runs, but that's not what you want Kevin Biggio for.
And Marcus Simeon may never hit 40 home runs again. So, let's be clear here.
my friend, sorry, if I may interject, I have a friend and a co-worker, very smart lady, but not nearly as into baseball as I am. She's interested, but anyway, she and I are on 2 different levels. But we were talking about Marcus Simeon today, and she even made the point that in Texas, he's not going to be hitting next to Vlad Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays lineup. And I basically, like, you got it. He's that offense that he put up this year. He doesn't have the other guys hitting around him down there. So It's not going to be the same. But you know what? It probably doesn't matter to him. He got his contract.
No, that's right. So, and he will be, and I'm sure your friend didn't know this at the time when they said it, but he'll also be hitting with Corey Seager, so there's that, right? But no, you're right. And anyway, regardless, Marcus Simeon, all the best. Good luck down there.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
He really signed a $180 million contract, maybe even a little bit more than that, because there's no state income tax in Texas. Whereas most of the states where he was, I mean, California, I think it's 12% income tax. If he was going to go to New York or Boston, it would be 8%. I don't know quite how the tax situation works in provincial Ontario, but I know that there are taxes that U.S. players have to pay above that. So really, he got not only what he wanted, he even got more because he signed in a state. And I really think that's why he got Boris, to get him in the best situation to maximize on every level, not only for the union, because he's now the lead pony for all the other Boris clients.
Mm-hmm.
He set the mark there. So all these other Boris clients are going to benefit from that as well. But he did really totally maximize his dollars.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you listen to all of the talk over the years about the Blue Jays and trying to get free agents to come in, the tax rate in Toronto with the provincial tax and the federal tax must be at least 80%. So, so yeah, he dodged a bullet there. Anyway, I thought it was fascinating that both of you agree on the Biggio versus Simeon argument. And I think that's the perfect segue into the fake Blue Jays news, because you two never agree on anything. So without further ado, the very uber popular fake news segment brought to you by JFtC.com. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. Now, lost amidst the 7-year extension given to Jose Berrios and the signing of right-hand pitcher Kevin Gausman to a 5-year, $110 million deal is the decision by the Toronto Blue Jays to not play an exhibition series in Montreal before the 2022 season. The Blue Jays have made it an annual tradition to play an exhibition series at the former home of the Expos since 2010, but the pandemic canceled plans in 2020 and 2021. And when asked for the reason for passing on resuming exhibition games in Quebec, team president Mark Shapiro said, "We still remain hopeful of a return to Montreal for exhibition games, but with the road opener, the logistics this season would have had a negative competitive impact. So we have tabled the opportunity for a year with the hope that we can revisit the possibility in future seasons." When confronted with the reality of the opening road series opponent being the Baltimore Orioles, Shapiro sheepishly smiled and stated, "Okay, you got me." In reality, it is already a competitive disadvantage to have to open the season against a pathetic team like the Orioles. We just don't wish to start the season on an even more sour note. Shapiro added, since becoming a naturalized Canadian citizen in 2019, he has come to the informed decision that he just doesn't like Montreal. Shapiro did address a team concern leading into the collective bargaining agreement negotiations that he shared with Commissioner Rob Manfred and the MLB negotiating team. With many small market teams adamant about protecting the revenue sharing payments they receive under the current CBA, Shapiro lobbied the commissioner's office for an institution of a competitive balance payment to the Blue Jays to offset the loss of revenue by the team due to the currency exchange rate for U.S. and Canadian dollars. Jays from the Couch has learned heated words were exchanged between the commissioner and Shapiro during a November telephone call. Manfred dismissed the request as self-serving and an attempt to gain an unfair advantage over their division rivals in New York and Boston, going so far as to say, "No one forced you," meaning the Blue Jays, "to play games in Canada." Shapiro angrily retorted, "Well, after suffering through Bowie Kuhn, Peter Uberoff, and Faye Vincent, no one forced the owners to hire another dope as commissioner." Shapiro continued with the observation that Manfred obviously had his head hidden, and I quote, "well below the 49th parallel." No word yet as to this issue being presented to the Players Association for consideration. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you. Which is, that whole thing is funny because Shapiro and Manfred are like this. But anyway, sorry. Continuing with fake Blue Jays news. Before agreeing to a deal with the Seattle Mariners, it was rumored that Robbie Ray tried to get just a bit more money out of the Blue Jays, according to Steve Phillips, was the one who said that, by the way. But Steve actually only got part of the ask. Along with wanting more money, Ray was lobbying Toronto to do something about their center field camera. When Jays from the Couch reached out to Ray for a comment, he had this to say: "I was hoping they'd use a different angle because there were far too many wedgie shots." Toronto refused. Ray signed elsewhere. And finally, Marcus Simeon will be playing in Texas, as will Corey Seager, as the Rangers paid about $500 million in the last 2 days, making them the front runners for the biggest Black Friday spenders of 2021. Which is a great honor, considering that's about all they'll win with these deals. Also, Robbie Ray will be tossing for the Mariners since Toronto signed Kevin Gausman. Ray decided to go where the second most Blue Jays fans are. And of course, with Simeon, Seager, and Ray all signing, we're hearing reports of a desk being flipped in Rob Manfred's office and a chair being tossed out of his ivory tower window. Witnesses say they heard screaming from the window, "What about the Yankees? Someone has to sign there!" And that has been Fake Blue Jays News, brought to you by JaysFromTheCouch.com.
And no, they don't.
Oh man, if Manfred does, yeah. Anyway, all right. So that brings us to the end of another podcast. 280 of them in the books, and I am deeply, deeply grateful for both of you for joining me every week. Steve, On Fact Circle Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Let everybody know how they can follow you and all that stuff.
You can follow me on Twitter at FecklessWonder. Tomorrow night's On Fact Circle, by the way, will be followed with an article on JFtC about how the lockout is going to impact the Blue Jays going forward. Of course, I've had to rewrite it 3 times now with all the different things going on. But I think it'll be, for once, it'll be worth actually sitting through, watching me smirk through a 30-minute segment. And hopefully you'll also enjoy the article on JFtC as well.
Wonderful. And Karen, host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. How can everybody follow you?
Yes, I'm on Twitter quite a bit at Karen Sutar1, exactly how it's spelled there, SOUTAR1. And yes, I'm pretty much addicted to Twitter, so I'm easy to find, love to talk baseball or other reasonable topics. Mutual respect is always important. And Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursdays, every other Thursday for now being the off season, and making sure we have enough things to talk about. So,
absolutely. Karen is addicted to Twitter. Somebody send for help. And before we go, a special little message here from Sarah watching on Facebook. Thank you, Sarah, for tuning in every week. She says, congratulations on episode 280. Thank you. That means a lot to myself and the folks here at Jays from the Couch. So for all of us, make sure you go to jaysfromthecouch.com. We've got all kinds of great articles coming up. You just can't find it anywhere else, or at least you can, just a different version of it a day or two later.
Right, yes.
Just saying. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at Jays from Couch. We're on Facebook, YouTube, where we stream all of these episodes live, all up in your grill. So check us out there. And of course, the audio version on Apple, Google, Spotify, anywhere you find quality podcasts, you'll find us. So for Steve, for Karen, for Marcus Simeon, for Robbie Ray, he's wearing a Mariners hat. I am ending this right now. This is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.
Robbie, we hardly